order, and adoption of the agenda. That the agenda of October 14th, 2021 meeting of the Community Development Advisory Committee be adopted. Does anyone have any additions, deletions, or anything else first? Okay, and Lisa and Alan are first.
Adopted.
Okay, I think Lisa and Alan had beat you, Dennis. So anybody opposed? Okay, seeing none. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest, its general nature thereof? Seeing none. Okay, adoption of the minutes now. Oh, I was ahead of myself. Okay, now we're at the adoption of the minutes. Okay, so that the minutes of the Community Development Advisory Committee meeting held July 14th be adopted. Is there any, do I have any movers to the minutes? Dennis, second. Alan, and is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none. Okay, now we will move to the deputations and or presentations. So Mr. Alex Jensen of the Kingston Film Office and Mr. Jay Jolie will provide an update to the Community Development Advisory Committee regarding the film and television opportunities in the region. Welcome, gentlemen. Don't see Jay Jolie. Yeah, Alex, you're here. And so I welcome you. And if you wish to go ahead, please go ahead. We can't hear you. Your mic's off. Still off. Host is not allowing us to unmute. So there's some muted and they're not being allowed to unmute. Does anyone have the?
I'm working on it right now, but you shouldn't have to. Just give me a moment.
Thank you very much. We always love technical issues because they make the world go around. Okay, we're seeing the screen sharing.
I apologize. I don't know why some of you are able to unmute and some of you aren't, but there's no option that I can get to unmute you if you can't do it yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it just, whatever you did just worked. I'll go back on mute though.
That's all right. What about Alex? Still getting the same message.
That worked for me.
There's a
Richard,
feedback.
you're back around. Oh, Alex got unmuted.
Okay, yeah, there was a lot of feedback. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Whoever the host was just unmuted me. Thank you very much.
I'm not sure what I did, but
you.
it works. That's good.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, well, I'll do a quick share. And then I've got Jay's slides in there. So I was going to give kind of an overview update on what's been going on in the Kingston Film Office and in the surrounding regions. And then Jay was going to give an update on the hyperlocal action plan that he's working on. So again, I'm Alex with the Kingston Film Office, film commissioner there, leading things through. So far, 2021, we're having a record year. 3 million in direct economic spend, and we're still getting numbers in. I think we're going to probably land closer to potentially up to 5 million in direct economic spend, and that's not even necessarily looking at the overall impact when you get the multiplier of the number of people in town. I'll kind of look at some of those highlight productions, but we're seeing a big increase in major production. So we're seeing a lot of production that's coming, shooting, using the major locations for it. And then we're getting some mid-sized production, but where we are seeing a decrease is in small local production. And that's tied entirely with COVID. So finding the additional cost required for productions to operate under COVID has been for a lot of smaller companies. So we're seeing a lot of our local production companies that aren't doing as much of their own production, but where we've been very successful is getting them working on some of these productions that are coming in. So we've been able to get them working under CBC, under Channel 4, under a bunch of different productions coming through. One of the big things that's helped us is we've been able to expand our incentives through accessing the destination fund. So we're now able to increase the amount of funding that a production can get for coming to shooting in Kingston, but it's tied towards their spend and their labor spend specifically. Trying to basically incentivize more of the productions to be higher in the community, and it's been working really well. Notably on the major productions, we had a 3-episode run of season 3 of a competition show called All Around Champion at Fort Henry. We had the pilot for a new series on Amazon called Reacher. That was at the Kingston Penitentiary. We had a 2-episode run of Murdoch Mysteries, and this is a really great one in that they shot first time in Kingston in season 13, and then they actually also shot into Frontenac for that. They had a great experience, and so they've actually started to write specifically for Kingston. So we had a great 2-episode run that was entirely throughout Kingston and surrounding regions, not at the penitentiary, but about a dozen different locations, which was great. For us, this one's been the Mayor of Kingstown, so that's releasing November 14th. That's with Jeremy from the Marvel movies as Hawkeye and Diane White, and it was a 3-month shoot all told. So it's a really big one. I would say that alone, we don't have final numbers, but I think that it's already over 1.5. I think when we get our numbers in, we'll be over 2 million in hotels. Periods in which it was filling every hotel from right way across to Belleville was filled, which was fantastic. And we're just seeing a huge spillover of everything from massive to local suppliers, site upgrades to Kingston Penitentiary. It's actually some of the best shape that it's been in years, probably since it was operational. Just doing massive amounts of upgrades. We had about 30 the community that were involved in junior crew areas, largely in locations. We had about 100 plus locals within background roles on it. So it went really well for us. We had Pop Whiz, which is a new game show that did a run at Fort Henry. And then right now this week we're actually hosting The Lost Symbol, which is the TV series tied to the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. And that's doing their final run. We think that's going to be our last big production. We expect things are going to slow down as the year goes. So now we're going to be playing a lot of catch up and reporting. We do have another smaller feature set up. Code 8 Part 2 is going to be doing a run at the penitentiary in November, but then we're going to be hoping to basically be lining up a lot of the stuff for 2022. Other notable stuff for 2021 that we wanted to flag. So what we've been able to do is leveraging that funds and kind of building off what we've been doing. So originally with info sessions and then workshops and then a training program with Queens now where there's 20 students credited and insured, and then now expanding that out. So we're working with surrounding high schools and whatnot. We've been able to start to get more end-to-end production, but with onset training opportunities. So the first one was Verona. It was great in that it was shot entirely within Frontenac region, and it was a really great test for it. It was about a $200,000 feature that shot completely within the arena or within the area. So we're going to get a kind of a full debrief report together on that one in November and seeing what kind of back on it and all the lessons learned. But it was a great opportunity to kind of start seeing how we can streamline and support more within the regions. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the pilot for a new series called City Thoughts. And then we've got another short film that's going to be a training film that's coming in November, which is I keep bumping into Candy Maldonado with the Blue Jay. So what we're looking at doing with all of those is that these are a little bit different in that the big productions, when we get them in, because they're so unionized, we're able to get people into the locations department or into background, but that's about it until they're union members. We're able to start converting some of the community members into qualifying for union membership. But in these ones, they're independent, non-union productions. So what we're able to do is get people working in every department, in camera, in grip, in sets, right the way across, even COVID safety. So we're seeing a really great training opportunities out of it, and the city's been really supportive onto that. So we're going to start leveraging more of that destination fund towards bringing more of it in, and this kind of build into the stuff that Jay's developing with the hyperlocal action plan. So we've started redesigning and expanding the workshops and the training. We're starting to work right into the co-op programs that some of the secondary schools have, specifically tied to media. And we've been looking at continuing expansion studies and proposals. So we've got the Skills Development Ontario proposal that is to take the framework of the practicum we've piloted out of Queens and then expanding it out to 100 members of different schools and the surrounding regions, including 3 area high schools, March of Dimes, Correction Services Canada, their offender release program, St. Lawrence College, and into the regions. The COPAF proposal is taking some really steam. So that's Southeastern Ontario Production Accelerator Fund, modeled after the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, which is a $25 million pool of money we talked about in the last meeting. That has just transformed the North into a $100 million industry. So we've got a proposal in to try to do the same, working within all the surrounding regions. Fingers crossed, hopefully we'll get some traction. We're engaging a lobbyist right now to push it through, but it's been getting continued support with more than a dozen MPPs. We're building up a lot of letters of support. If anyone's interested in help with a letter of support, please just maybe send me a message at the end of this. The RTO9 support study has been great. That's building out that foundation for something like a COPAF. Through the summer, we ended up within each of the 9 DMOs that make up RTO9. We did 2 to 4 days of photography. Each we've got 80 plus new locations that have all been shot and are all going up into the provincial locations library. And we're already starting to see traction from those types of things. We had a scout for a new Disney Plus series that was in Napanee. Coming, we locked a music video into Gananoque, and then we have an end-to-end that's looking shooting at the St. Raphael's ruins potentially into January. So we're starting to see a real uptick. Some interest in the Brockville Railway Tunnel. So we're starting to see that kind of happen and supporting within the regions, and then just seeing how we can streamline and work together more. The hyperlocal screen-based action plan, I'm going to leave that completely to Jay to talk about in a minute. And then what we've done as an organization is we've now incorporated as a standalone not-for-profit, and that's so that we can start to access more funding directly from the province through Ontario Creates or federally through the Canada Media Fund. And we're also kind of building our board that's sector specific, and that's with the full support of Tourism Kingston's. So really excited about that. And that kind of leads to with 2022. So with that new status, our hope is to access new funding and revenue streams. I think we're going to see a continued growth in major production already just from on the radar for the coming years, already looking to continue to maintain on a record pace. But what we're going to start seeing is also a return of small and local production as COVID becomes a bit more manageable. Already we've been able to, through great programs like what the Chamber has allowed for helping with COVID testing, that's already allowed some of the smaller production staff. And what we're hoping to resurrect as soon as it's safe to do so is a program where we supported 15 local production companies on the creation of music videos that were training exercises for the community. So last time we ran that, we had 100 bands that pitched 15 production companies, and then 200 members of the surrounding regions were involved in the creation of these music videos. So we're hoping to do that again. And that was a great way to kind of identify and work with the production companies within the community that we now have working with folks like CBC and Channel 4. And then the next piece, and this will fit nicely with what Jay's going to talk about. We're going to see an increase in end-to-end production with onset training. So we're going to formalize what we've been using the Destination Fund for this year. We're going to formalize it based on the lessons learned through productions like Verona this past year. What we're doing is setting it so that a production can apply for up to $50,000 towards their labor spend, but it needs to be on a production of $500,000 or more, largely because we've just found some of the smaller productions otherwise they're not able to, it's tricky for them to be able to give back within the community and to properly compensate on locations and all these things. So that's kind of what we're looking at as a trial one, like basically a pilot of it for the next year. We already have 2 features that were originally scheduled for November that are going to push into the new year. One is Cry Wolf, so it's a 5 million non-union production, a werewolf film that was looking at November that I think we're going to see landing into January. We're just figuring it out. It's on casting. We have One Night, which is it's about $500,000 Canadian feature. That would be in the surrounding regions. I think we'd see some of that into Frontenac as well, and that's about an April-May production. We had a film originally scheduled for this past summer, a horror film called with Vortex, which is a production company originally based out of Hamilton, and they're looking at remounting that for next summer. That's entirely in the Frontenac region, and then we're starting to see similar. So Vortex is making the move potentially from Hamilton to explore it. Fireside Entertainment is an Ottawa-based company that they're just starting to have a harder time within their own regions. Fireside almost exclusively does stuff like the Hallmark and Lifetime romance movies. So we're courting them. And then, of course, what Jay's doing with Branded to Film with the idea of building an entire slate of films, which would be a complete game changer for the region. So we're really excited about starting to see more of that. And I think as we build a domestic crew base, we'll just see more and more production. With that, the enhanced training programs, we're looking to formalize something with St. Lawrence College, potentially as early as next spring. And then hopefully going to put forward a proposal for what a phase 2 of the RTO9 study be, to take all the locations that we've been shooting so far and actually team up on starting to do things like a concerted marketing push together, and some fan tours to start bringing top scouts in, and to kind of basically potentially even build up a website for the region. And I think it builds a really nice framework for if the COPAF, that Southeastern Ontario Accelerator Fund, if that were to come together, I think the RTO9 would be the center of it. And then otherwise continue to work on increased locations access. First started, we were only doing permits for City of Kingston properties. We've now become the designated representative for Correction Services Canada on Kingston Penitentiary. We're exploring opportunities around Rockwood, hoping that could actually fall within the portfolio. We're working with Queens to try to make it possible to do larger productions within there. We've got a production potentially looking at fall 2022. So we're trying to see if that's something we could land there. Then we're doing more partnerships with private entities that don't necessarily have the capacity or the connection base to be able to promote to film. So things like the Prison for Women, we've been helping represent them to it. And then also continuing to support the surrounding regions. So, and what we're finding through the RTO9 study is that some of the locations within the regions already have their own representation or their own framework, something like the Brockville Railway Tunnel. So all we do is help promote it. But then there's other locations that don't really have that setup yet. So I'm thinking of like the Trenton Conservation Area, where we can kind of be almost like a partner for them on trying to land more production. And then lastly, the next thing we're looking at is as we continue to get more end-to-end production, we're always have a mind towards the future where at some point it might make sense to get video space. We're already seeing things like the Cry Wolf feature, not having a designated purpose-built studio space, but we're just continuing to look for locations that could work for some of these productions. So that kind of gives an overview of what we're at, and we've definitely been spread thin this last year. We've seen it rebound incredibly strong, the sector post-COVID, and so we're playing a bit of catch up. And so we've actually taken Simone Rodrigue, who some of you dealt with through the RTO9 study. She used to work with me at a distribution company called Mongrel Media, so she's going to be joining our team in a full-time capacity heading into the next year, so that we're in pretty good shape for 2022. So I don't know if there's any questions around the kind of Kingston and surrounding region overview, but otherwise I was going to move things into Jay, and we could take them at the end. Okay, I'm going to move right on to your slides then. Jay, just let me know when you want me to move next. There's my contact info if anyone wants to get in touch, especially about things of letter of support for COPAF or so forth.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Oh, hello?
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Yes. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. Okay, terrific. Well, thanks, Alex, for the terrific lead up. What Alex is doing is incredibly exciting, and absolutely, what I'm doing is it's part of this master plan that Alex has actually been putting together for quite some time. And I guess when was the film office launched in 2019?
Yeah, we started consulting in 2018, but yeah, we finally got going in 2019.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm local. I live here. So just to catch up, because last time we spoke, just going to the next slide, Alex. Oh, yeah, perfect. Okay, so one of the things we hadn't confirmed at the time we last spoke was matching funds from Ontario Creates. So as you remember, and you might have saw those little logos on that at the outset there at the bottom, the partners who've put a little bit of sponsorship capital in it. It includes the Kingston Film Office, Kingston Economic Development, Frontenac Business Solutions, formerly the CFDC, Upper Canada Equity Fund, and myself. I've put a little bit in terms of just deferring fees, and lastly, to get us to the point where we needed to achieve that 15,000 for Ontario Creates, then to come and put another minimum 15 on to actually execute this plan. So based on the timeline with them, I plan to, my hope is to have the first draft to be delivered to Ontario Creates by December 17th. So right now, my full-time job is literally interviewing local stakeholders, schools, industry leaders, provincially, national service and equipment suppliers, along with provincial, federal job and industry funding bodies to kind of come up with really a holistic way to basically onboard young people, skills transferring from other industries, funds that will enable us to do that and subsidize some of that. Also ways to bring infrastructure that isn't here over a 3 to 5 year period that can help support all of this, and anything else along the way that will just add value to not only what the hyperlocal is doing, but will have dividends that will pay off into what Alex is doing on his side as well. So, when you look at what this is, and we'll get into the next slide, but it is kind of the crux of this. Although me as an independent producer, my motivation is to produce 10 back-to-back features here because I live and I want to base my thing here. But for me to do that, I have to train crews that live here and breathe here and pay their taxes here for my model to work. So by building this actually helps not only people of producers like me who live here and are building business here, but also attracting other domestic producers that increasingly are getting pushed out of places like Toronto and Hamilton just because of the nature of the business and how it's been taken over by larger productions, which we're also benefiting because of Alex's hard work. So my plan is to socialize an early draft with local stakeholders, hopefully by late October. And again, it'll just be very high level, kind of just lay out what I've been able to find in a very short version that's very readable, that will be expanded in the late edition of the will be more like 75. But I'd like to get that first 10 pages and just kind of so all the stakeholders involved can look at it, maybe consider it for planning in their own budgets, and have questions and feedback to me that I can use to improve and better align with some of the stuff they're doing. So my goal is to be very transparent with this and really, connect with the community, because this is, as the name goes, is hyper local. So it's for us and by us in all sense. And the way I'm working with Alex, it isn't an and or. This is an and. So we're creating abundance together. So one of the things I've been looking at, speaking with Alex, and also just realizing that a lot of what I'm doing, although I have a history of producing in difficult places with limited crews like Moose Jaw and Lumsden, Saskatchewan, and I've had the experience of shooting both in Sudbury and North Bay, I realized that Kingston is a unique beast unto itself. And part of my knowledge base, I realize I'm going to have to do a practical example, which will be what I want to do is as much as possible in winter 21-22. I actually am putting together a proposal and financing right now that will enable us to see how far we can get with local resources on a very, let's just say, a really nice production that takes place in a very limited location for us to be able to shoot and actually experiment on, which is, as to Alex pointed out, independent productions like this give us more flexibility to be able to work with Queens, St. Louis, the YES program, and to kind of bring people like that in and train them because of the nature of the production. So that's the thing that I'm really, as well as this, I really want to test the real world application of it. And from this, it'll help me, because I think that there's what I'm increasingly looking at, there's a second part of this action plan, which is kind of what I call an adjunct training or operation manual for something like this, when I describe end-to-end production over the next 3 to 5 years, that we can add to as a repository of best practices and how we make ourselves better as a region. So that's kind of the work on a very high level. Now, what I wanted to do on the next slide, Alex, if you can advance it. So this is what I basically put together that I thought I'd socialize with you. That's very much a tiny snapshot of the executive summary of what will be in this plan. And my hope is that you either like it or maybe don't like some of it, or would like to add to it because there's stuff that you would like to see more in it. So again, what I'm doing is, again, less of a cultural strategy. This is really an economic development engine that I'm basically modeling over the next 5 years. So my goal would be to train at least 2 local production crews in every category. And when I say local, it means they have to live here, they have to pay their taxes here, their kids have to go to school together, et cetera, and so forth. Generate revenue across the local economy, which I think everybody likes, which is GDP growth that Alex has already proven comes from this sector. And Ontario does have a $2.4 million, well, pre-COVID screen-based sector. The other thing is to align, and the great thing about film is it really does bind creative industries and schools together to create a cluster effect. And I think we're well on our way to do that. We've got all the ingredients we need to do that. And I think this will be the next kind of great creative cluster in Ontario for all of those reasons. And the fact that we have increasingly municipalities, just the fact that we've created a film office since 2019, I believe that's a huge win. So the other thing, not only am I looking at funding from all those sources, and how do we take some of that funding and drive it in not only to local training, but also content and infrastructure. So there's lots of ways we can do that through funds that exists out there, FedDev, et cetera, from like even Ontario Creates to even national kind of funds that could include telefilm. So the other thing is obviously what we want to do as well is spotlight the region to attract new business talent and tourism. Part of creating, like, once people know that we're actually shooting crews here with locally trained crews, that increasingly attracts people that Alex described, like the Bill Marxes, where you need to realize that we actually have already lots of attractive pieces. We're 2.5 hours from Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, 3 centers right there where producers live. We already have incredible location diversity. And I think Alex has done a great job of continuing to expand that and continuing to make this a really desirable place. Even if you're just here for 5 days to visit, we already know that's going to be a bump. And increasingly, what I'm starting to see is there's young families that might have, they're professionals working in film and television in Toronto, Hamilton, that are increasingly that want a better work-life balance. And ultimately, as we kind of create things here in our own backyard, where Kingston plays itself, as you see with like the Schitt's Creek effect or the Corner Gas, that will increasingly create Kingston as a destination. So that's kind of, and again, so these are all like the bottom line kind of things I'm trying to achieve. But I always think it's important also with any new business plan is to give the triple bottom line. Not only do you want to create a great product, you want to make a profit, but you also want to give back. So part of this action plan, because we're building it from the ground up and we're not married to legacy like you would in Toronto or other regions that are very well developed, we can ensure diversity, equity, inclusivity, and parity across our particular industry and across the strategy. And lastly, this also gives us an opportunity to really start to harness and develop practices to realize a carbon neutral sector, which unto itself is a great marketing play. So again, look at what this plan as, it's not a plan that's going to be fit like I will be delivering a plan, but the plan is designed to be iterated on over time. But really is to really nail that kind of local revenue ecosystem where investment flows back through direct, indirect, and induced and spillover revenue. There's actually a fourth one in there that I've been able to identify and start to model out. And key to this, because of the hyper-local, it really does feed into the idea of stakeholder capitalism, which means it's not shareholder capitalism, but along with revenue, this particular plan is designed to improve everything it impacts in the community to ensure sustainability and also to set up future generations for success. And again, like I said from the beginning, this is part of a bigger Kingston Frontenac film strategy that I hope will lay the groundwork for us to capture 1 to 2% of Ontario's $2 billion sector within the next 10 years. So that's what I'm doing. And I would, like, as always, really love any feedback and also the county support through this. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jay and Alex. Does anyone have any questions? I have a couple. Just Alex, could you send me a copy of the presentation?
Absolutely.
If that's possible?
Yeah.
Because I'm also on the Frontenac or North Frontenac Economic Development Task Force, and I'm also with Frontenac Business Services too. So I'd like a copy of that. I'm quite interested because of the differences in the different regions, what we can offer, and that maybe our group can start focusing on some of that information. So I thank you for that. Anyone else have any questions, comments, or anything else? Dennis?
Yes, I've got everybody's picture frozen, but I think you can still hear me. I'm
Yes,
just
we can.
wondering, Jay and Alex, if you've contacted the local offices, the local lower tier municipalities, or are you leaving it up to the county and this committee to do that?
I have not, but I think that's a great bit of feedback. What would you recommend we do?
Well, I think we have to engage the local municipalities. That's where you know all the people are and all the taxpayers are. So it'd be,
Sure.
I think it would be a good thing to do.
Okay. Well, I can start with Wolf Island.
Maybe send, yeah. That
I can start with
could be a
North
good
Frontenac
start.
and send me the info.
It might be a good idea to at least here locally, Jay, to have a delegation at one of our meetings on Wolf Island and just see if we can get the council behind the what do you call it? The hyper local organization.
Yeah, no, I'd love to host you whenever you want. As you know, I also, a little bit about my background, I was also, I helped Chris and Tom do the business plan for the hotel. So I'd love to host you there. And I also own a beer company. So I've got lots of ways to throw a good meeting.
And I hope to see you on the 21st too.
I will be there. I got my invitation and I will reserve a spot.
I've already reserved mine and my daughter. So.
And all I can add is, I guess through the RTO9 study, we've been largely going through the DMOs directly, and then setting up a meeting with anyone interested within the different areas. And then as we actually go out and shoot the locations, we'll usually get connected with different people based on each location that will go through. And then we've been pretty lucky in that we've had different people from different direct municipalities kind of escort us around as we take some pics or whatnot. Or the other thing that tends to happen for us a lot is based on a specific production. If they're looking at somewhere specific like Verona or whatnot, then we'll end up kind of deep diving into that one area. But we're definitely finding at this point, like there's been more demand than there has been feet on the ground for us. But that's why we're kind of really excited about bringing Simone in and having her into the next year, is because we're hoping that we can kind of run a second iteration of this into the new year.
Okay, any other comments, questions, or anything else for Alex and Jay? Hearing none, I thank you very much. Very interesting, and look forward to having more presentations in the future and seeing you both in the future.
Thanks so much,
Okay.
Dr. Thune. Bye.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. So we're at reports. So the Community Development Advisory Committee Destination Development Plan progress. This is just a report. So if you can, Richard, your background noise is really bad. I don't know what it is. Now I can't hear you. You're muted again. Yeah.
The noise has gone at my end.
Yeah, but he's muted. Okay,
How's that?
Richard, that's much better. Thank you very much.
My apologies. I had the wrong microphone selected. You're just hearing
Thank
my
you.
computer struggling to run this meeting.
Okay.
The destination development plan, just a brief update to the committee on the progress. Much of the summer has been spent engaging with one-on-one conversations and stakeholder conversations. The engaging the tourism industry in the summer is not exactly an easy task, and so we expect to see things speed up over the course of the next couple of months as we finish up the focus groups and start bringing some ideas forward into community meetings. And so that's essentially what our update provided. And if you have any questions about the destination plan, I'm happy to receive them.
The only thing I noticed in the winter, you had different activities in that, and I would also like to see, and I know it says and so forth, winter camping is something that's starting to be a growing opportunity here in the north. So people are coming out, and it's beyond me, but they love winter camping.
Yeah, I believe the idea is that we should be capitalizing on winter in a stronger sense. So.
And the only other thing I would like to say is we need things that men and women do, not just geared more to the men, because the women are important too. So that's the only two comments that I had on that, and I appreciate you letting me. And I just wanted to say I apologize that presentation went so long, but I thought it was well worth listening to the whole presentation. Okay, so moving on. Next,
Madam Chair?
Yes?
Alan
I just
had a question
on the report.
Sorry. Okay, yes.
Through you to Richard. I just note you indicate in background comments that Frontenac County has assumed the role of destination management organization for the region. What are you defining as the region?
Frontenac County.
All right, thank you.
Okay, anything else? I missed anybody? No? Okay, thank you very much. Next report. We have a recommendation. So be it resolved that the Community Development Advisory Committee endorse the concept of creating a regional community improvement plan, and further that it be recommended to County Council as a part of the 2022 to 2026 budget deliberations. Funding be allocated for a study to determine the feasibility and implementation options for a regional community improvement plan. Okay, Richard. Dennis has a question first.
Yeah, yes, similar to Alan, are we to assume the region again is the county of Frontenac? I didn't see that specified there. I know you brought in other regions in the report, but are you sticking to Frontenac County?
Yes, no, when we mean region, so something that is countywide when we're talking region in this report and in the previous report. So the idea with a community improvement plan is to look at some kind of approach to help support or incentivize investment, especially investment in priority areas for our region. So for all of our communities that make up Frontenac County. And one of the best ways to stimulate economic activity from an economic development standpoint is an effective community improvement plan. And we have community improvement plans across the region. That includes the one in Verona, Charlotte Lake, Marysville, Harrowsmith, as well as the township-wide community improvement plan that we have in North Frontenac. One of the advantages of creating something that is county-wide is that it would provide incentives that are not necessarily limited to specific geographies, so specific villages or subsections, but also that these incentives would be that the county would provide would be on top of whatever incentives are already provided at the township level. So in most of the cases of the examples that we provide, the participation in the community improvement plan requires participation in the local level community improvement plans. So when we look at how we can implement a regional community improvement plan, we're going to have to look at how we work with the townships on their local community improvement plans and discuss implementation as part of that. But the idea is then we can guide development or help developers find their way around some certain barriers, specifically barriers that have been cited recently by small businesses and local developers are burdens for study. So development in Frontenac County is not straightforward. We don't have perfect square plots of land that aren't near rocks or lakes or wetlands, and so therefore additional consideration is needed to be taken in terms of natural heritage as well as preserving the character of our region. And so in order to do this, which I think most people would agree is important, we need to maybe make it easier for our private developers to do that, because most private developers in Frontenac are smaller businesses. Frontenac County has one of the highest levels of self-employed or single-person businesses across Eastern Ontario. And so as folks are looking to grow their smaller businesses, they have additional efforts that they have to make to get themselves established. There are other incentives, like if we're looking to grow tourism, or if we're looking to direct development towards trail supportive businesses. These are the kinds of things that we can set as priorities, but that would happen through a community consultation process that would take place as part of the development of this plan. So the study that we're proposing would be an evaluation of the existing conditions in Frontenac, a look at best practices outside of Frontenac, and then recommendations on the path forward for implementation. And then we would evaluate if our partners are interested in working with us to move this proposed community improvement plan forward. But we still have to take a look at what the priorities might be, what the feasibility of it might be, and the economics of it before we can launch straight into creation of a regional plan. Joe, who's on the call, may have additional considerations from a planning standpoint, because this is a tool that comes from the Planning Act that we can use. Joe?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Richard. Yes, this, as Richard said, this would be the first regional community improvement plan, and Richard's listed the other CIPs we have throughout Frontenac. Most of them are specific to villages like Marysville or Harrowsmith, and by and large, they're mostly Main Street facade improvement plans. This is a different piece of work we're looking at doing, and as Richard said, we're trying to focus it on small business investment, tourism, but we also need to do this first piece of work to determine what the framework should be. So we need to, whoever helps us with this work, we need to have conversations with small businesses, with the townships, township staff, with other economic development organizations, some best practices, as Richard said. But I'll give you a couple examples that may help in terms of us trying to help small businesses get going and potentially what this CIP could provide for. So recently, our planning team was working with a family who are looking at building cabins by a lake in central Frontenac. And it's a great project, but it's a family proposal. It's a 3-person proposal, I believe. But we knew that the lake was very important for the Algonquins of Ontario. And also based on the official plan for Central Frontenac, we asked the business people that for them to do the work to where they wanted to build the cabins, that they needed to do some archaeological work. And I believe it was approximately $10,000, maybe more, but just that little bit of money, extra money they had to spend to do that. If we had a CIP that allowed us to help cover those costs, whether it's something like an archaeological plan or potentially an environmental impact study, or a water quality study. So for example, we had a proposal for a distillery on Wolf Island. Again, a husband and wife team who recently bought a farm, and we told them they needed to make sure that we knew that there was adequate water quality on their property and they weren't going to have an impact on their neighbors. Those small things just to get them off the ground. We're thinking that those kind of programs would go into a region-wide CIP so that we could have those kinds of opportunities available across the region. But we do need to do our homework before we come back to county council and say, we think you need to invest to do these things, to do these projects, to invest this amount of money. And the other thing we need to look at is whether the township should also be at the table in this investment. All of the CIPs that have been done so far in the townships, all of the money for those CIPs have actually come from the county. There's been no local investment in the CIPs. Maybe it's a time to rethink that there should be joint investments in those things. So I'll leave it at that, Madam Chair, and with Richard, I'll take any questions you have.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just Madam Chair, before we break into questions, one thing I wanted to point out that I don't explore too deeply in the report, but in two of the examples that I discuss in the report, we talk about something called tax incremental grant programs. And tax incremental grant programs are incredibly useful because they allow the county to be able to provide essentially a grant on the county portion of taxation that would be the difference in assessment value. So if an investment is made to improve a property and that assessment value is going to grow because of that investment, we would delay or rebate or provide a grant in an equal amount of this new assessment growth for a period of time to help pay for the development that's being undertaken as part of the agreement. And so what that does is that it doesn't require us to do more taxation to fund this program, and it doesn't require us to find somewhere else. The site itself essentially funds its program. We just, the county benefits from the assessment increase at a later date than it would have initially because of the work. And so these programs have been quite useful in helping incentivize development in other regions. And so that's something that we would want to be looking at as part of our approach.
Okay, Alan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's been pointed out that historically in the local communities, the CIPs were frequently facade changes or improvements to dress up the streetscape, if you like, in the communities in which they've been added to. And I'm wondering, sort of discussion now in a broader CIP is that there's many different things that can be incentivized to help support growing businesses. Is there any legislative guide in terms of what those limits are?
Through you, Madam
No.
Chair, I can answer in part. So yes, the Planning Act, Section 28 of the Planning Act is specifically about community improvement plans. And it lays out what you can and can't put in a community improvement plan. So for example, Richard just mentioned tax increment financing, which is a really important incentive for getting business attraction. Only by using a community improvement plan are you allowed to use those tax incentive programs. You can't do them under any other venue. So the Planning Act's very clear on what you can and can't do.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Okay, I'd just like to point out that North Frontenac has upgraded their CIP recently to expand it to get more use, and it is working. We are getting more uptake on it. by changing some aspects of it and updating it. Okay, seeing nothing else. Shop local initiative. It's a report for information only.
Madam Chair, there's a motion on the floor that needs to be considered.
Sorry. Whoops. Okay, so I had read the motion at the beginning. I'll reread it. It is be it resolved that the Community Development Advisory Committee endorse the concept of creating a regional CIP, and that it recommended to County Council that as part of the 2022-2026 budget deliberations, funding be allocated for a study to determine the feasibility and implementation options for regional meaning Frontenac Community Improvement Plan.
I'll make that motion.
Marlene, you'll make that motion,
Yeah.
and Lisa, you'll second it? Okay, is anybody opposed? Okay, motion passed. So now we're on to shop local. So this is a report for information purposes. Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is one of Allison's last reports in her role as Community Development Officer. She's her last day with the county was on Friday, and she's moved on to work with the City of Ottawa. To our great disappointment, and to the City of Ottawa's great gain, I guess. And she was instrumental in the creation of these shop local videos and the initiatives associated with it happening. Overall, they received quite a good response, both in terms of views on social media, over 200,000 views collectively on almost 30 videos, and we have also seen specific feedback from those who have been part of those videos. That they really appreciated the attention and comments that they garnered on social media in terms of showing their support, showing the county's support for small business and keeping small businesses afloat during the pandemic. This was one of our main planks of support for our COVID-19 response, which County Council approved in 2020, in the May of 2020, and we're essentially winding this stage of that response down, and the community improvement plan actually that we're proposing to move forward with is sort of a part of the follow-up and recovery side of things as hopefully we're moving into a more of a recovery where we had hoped to be, let's say, at this point last year, and go forth. If you have any questions about the COVID-19 response or the shop local videos, I'd be happy to take them.
Does anyone have any questions, comments? The only thing I'd like to say is the videos were great. I enjoyed them, shared them all on Facebook. I think it was a great initiative. And I appreciate the work that was done on that. Anyone else have any comments? Oh, okay. So this is a report on the Indigenous Relationship Initiative. So who's on this one? Jeanette?
Hi, sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. This is my report, and it really is just an information report to bring the committee up to speed on what's happening at the county in terms of how we're addressing the TRC's Truth and Reconciliation report and the 73 calls to action that it included. So the report is pretty inclusive of what we've done to date, which is we have celebrated the Orange Shirt Day. It was a huge initiative through staff. And Wolf Island has also started an initiative in terms of their signage that includes an Indigenous welcome now. And it really lays out the next steps that we want to take in terms of how we're going to build those Indigenous relationships. So we're really looking to the committee. We felt that this sort of initiative really should go through the Community Development Advisory Committee as community oriented. And so our next steps, of course, are going to be an educational piece for staff, as well as reaching out and building those relationships with the Indigenous community. One of the items that the report didn't identify, as it has just come to my attention now, is that some staff training is already going to take place. There is a Carol's blanket exercise, which is scheduled for October 20th at the leadership team. And this is really an experiential teaching tool that's based on participatory popular education methodology and the major themes of findings from the 1996 Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. So that will be taking place on October 20th. So that will be our first training exercise. But we certainly look to this community on how we can build those relationships, where we might want to start, and how we can move forward.
Okay, questions, Dennis? Dennis, you had a question?
Yes, I got knocked out here. Sorry, I missed a little bit of that. And maybe you mentioned it, Jeanette, but in the report, you talked about working with the townships to develop a common territorial acknowledgement. At the health unit, we got a consultant to help us with that a couple of years ago, and we read it at the beginning of every meeting. I just wonder who you're working with in the townships to do that.
So through you, Madam Chair, one of the things that we did before we started all of this was we did reach out to the townships to see what they were doing in terms of the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action, as well as a potential land claim. And there was nothing being done at the time. And so we sort of have decided to work together to make this a Frontenac-wide approach. We will be reaching out to the Indigenous community as well to help us establish that land acknowledgement, recognizing that the county is quite a large, vast landmass. So there may be different nations within the county that are recognized in different places. So again, we're sort of blind at this right now. And so that's what the purpose is of building those relationships first with the Indigenous community, to build that trust and respect and build that relationship so that we can work with them to come up with the best land claim and the best initiatives moving forward that respect the nations that are within our borders. I'm not sure if Mr. Allen had anything to add to that. We are kind of working collaboratively, but it is something really that the clerk's office has taken on, and our communications officer will be taking the lead in reaching out to the community, to the Indigenous community, to start building those relationships.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Any other comments?
Actually, Betty, it's Ella.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I am working very closely with Indigenous Tourism Ontario. I'm actually on a contract as their business advisor for Indigenous businesses in this region. So with the community development officer for Frontenac County going to be reaching out to the different Indigenous communities, I'm happy to collaborate with them and see if we can't approach it together, or if there's any introductions I can do to help out. I'm happy to do that as well. ITO has already established relationships with most of the communities in this area, so I think working together could benefit everyone.
That would be awesome. That's what we were hoping for.
And I'm taking notes as I go with the EPTF and the Economic Development Task Force in North Frontenac here, that I will bring something forward for that too. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate, Jeanette, we felt it very important that we bring this to this committee because this is the Community Development Advisory Committee, and this is very much a broad community development initiative, and we really are going to need to rely on the support and advice from those people in the community who can help us build these relationships and strengthen our connection to those Indigenous people who reside in our region and those nations that exist within our region as well. So any thoughts, whether it's in this meeting or elsewhere, that comes from this committee and guidance, we are certainly welcoming of that.
Yes, and I'm fully in support of all the Indigenous. I just feel so badly that it had to come to this point with the schools and all of that that we finally started to make more efforts to join together. So that's just my personal commentary. Okay. Oops. Sorry, I'm busy taking notes and not paying attention to what I'm doing. Okay. So that being said, sorry. We did receive a communication from Allison. Everybody received it. Was there any questions about that? Hello. I'll call you back. Okay, any questions about that? Sorry. And everyone saw the communication from our Mayor, Ron Higgins. Other business, the next meeting will be December 9th at 10 a.m. With the same format. I assume. So I will ask for an adjournment. Hello. Yes, just one moment, please. Thank you. Okay, so do I have a mover and a seconder for adjournment?
Just before you do that, I do have one piece of additional business, Betty, and that's just that there's next week is Small Business Week across the province, and in collaboration with Frontenac Business Services and BDC, we're hosting an event at the hotel on Wolf Island. And if any of you are interested, please send me a note and we can send you a link to the Eventbrite to sign up and join in. That's what Jay was saying he's registered for earlier.
And I am too.
And Betty is as well. And so it's the hotel on Wolf Island is an interesting evolution of a long-standing business, and a great place to host this kind of event if you're interested in participating. So just wanted to make that known to the committee, and now you feel free to call for adjournment so you can take your call.
Okay. Sorry, adjournment. Alan,
I shall move.
Ella, everybody, thank you and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.